Thanks for joining me today. I have a special guest for this mixed up Monday, not mortgage huddle, right? Mortgage Mondays will be on Tuesday this week. So Greg will be in tomorrow to do his huddle session just for all of y'all that are here that were expecting to see Greg but got me instead. Well, we're definitely not going to be talking about financing, but we are going to be talking about financing a little bit today, right? So everybody remembers the all cash exhibit. That's what it was called last year, where it said the buyer is using all cash. They reserve the right to obtain mortgage financing, right? And when you do that, all of the normal mortgage language that's in the contract falls into place, right? So I'm going to kind of turn it over here to Jay for a second and say, you discovered a big whoopsie moment last week that I want to share with everyone.
So most of my investors, when we write offers, we use the all cash exhibit. We reserve the right to obtain non-institutional funding, hard money, private money, etc. It then goes on to say, is there an appraisal contingency? We mark no. And then it's just boilerplate language. But when I went to write an offer, so I write multiple offers for most of my investors, and we have a package. So when I went into the package to update, because when the new contracts come out, you have to update the package.
Let me jump in. Everybody's familiar with the different packages. We provide all of you with packages for conventional financing, FHA, cash. This all cash exhibit is in that. Jay sets up her own packages that are tailored to her investors. So her investor's name and all their typical stuff that they want, closing attorney, earnest money, all that stuff is already pre-populated. So it makes, when you're doing investor offers, it makes writing those offers 5 minutes instead of a half an hour.
Right. So what happened before all this is I wrote 100 offers in a week, one by one. And you can imagine how freaking long it took. And I went crazy, and Christina and Dwayne let me know about that. And the other thing, so I put in my steps like what I need my contracts to say. So I go to update the packages, and when you update them, anything that you populated erases, so you have to rewrite it. And the closing attorney, or the attorney last week, was talking about this exhibit right here, the no financing contingency. So, which is in lieu of the cash exhibit. So as I'm reading it, if you can see, I'd be checking B, finance purchase with no financing contingency, which that fits. But it then goes on to say, I'm removing my right to unilaterally extend my contract.
Yes. And that's
the
big, that was the big wow moment.
Yes.
Let me say that again. Let me interrupt you real quick. Let me say that again. You do not have the right to unilaterally extend 8 days if you use this exhibit.
Yes.
How it's written.
Yes. So even though buyers obtaining a mortgage loan, they have no right to unilaterally extend for reason of mortgage delay. So in my deals, in hard money deals, private money deals, there are always lender delays. So we just whip out the 8-day unilateral. If we can't, the seller is in agreement of us extending, because you always want to get mutual agreement first before you use the notice.
Good note.
So, and then not only we're giving that right up, but if the closing attorney isn't ready because of the mortgage delay, because you're always waiting on the lender package is the delay, we don't have the right to unilaterally extend. So that's a hell no for me, dog.
Thanks. So, I mean, that's literally what I wanted this huddle to be about, was you give up that 8-day unilateral if you use this exhibit, right? So if you're doing cash, if you're saying it's cash, or you're trying to do no finance contingency, in reality, you're better off not even using this exhibit, okay? Going back to Real Estate 101, a contract can be written on a napkin, and it's just the terms that are read out there. This protects the seller from the buyer unilaterally 8-day extending on them for pretty much any reason. So would care to share what we Did in lieu of?
In lieu of, so we're writing in steps, the buyer retains the right to
Obtain a mortgage.
financing.
Yep. Financing for the property.
And
Hard
that
money
8-day
financing.
unilateral is in that PSA.
Yes, it's written in the purchase and sale agreement. Mr. Guggen?
So you put 0 days, if you don't have this exhibit, but you put 0 days in your finance, like the conventional loan?
Yeah.
No, there's no, it has nothing to do with it.
Yeah. Has nothing to do
And
with it.
if you're using hard money, and we learned this last year,
That
the
is
hard
not the
way,
conventional loan exhibit.
don't use the conventional financing agreement because it gives the seller the right to approve if you change the financing.
Yep. And with
And-
hard money, they literally, these investors go out and they have 10 different hard money lenders. And you don't want to have to deal with, we're going to go with this lender over this lender because this lender charges 12 points up front as opposed to this lender's only charging 10.5 points up front. I mean, in a broad scheme of things, if you want to know more about hard money lending, this is not the time to learn about it. You can always sit down with Jay though. She'd be
And I have a lender who's willing to come in and do a huddle too,
okay. We'll keep
if
that in
anyone's
mind for sure.
interested.
Where did you put the special stip about the?
In the
unilateral?
steps.
In the special steps of the
In
contract.
the purchase and sale,
Yep.
not in that exhibit.
We're not using this
and
exhibit at all.
She is not using this exhibit at all. Just because there is an exhibit does not mean you have to use that exhibit.
Exhibit will you use?
You don't
You
have
don't.
to.
You don't have to. All transactions are considered all cash to the seller.
Are those stipulations listed in the stipulation library that's in Rayline now?
I don't
sure he could
believe
add
so,
one.
but I'm sure I can add them as well. So I will get it in there. We'll call it, how does all cash special step
Okay.
work for y'all? So that you can plug that in instead of using this exhibit. Some agents will require you to have this, in which case you all now know that you lose your right to 8-day unilateral if you use this exhibit. So, which is the big point. Don't want to come down to the last minute and have you not be able to do that. And again, Jay made a point as well. Get mutual agreement. The listing agent gets really, really pissed off when you 8-day unilateral them because the seller is planning on moving. And then all of a sudden, hey, we're extending 8 days. So at that point, it would be no surprise to the listing agent that you're going to use your 8-day unilateral
Right.
because you've tried to extend already.
So in case like the agent wants to have an exhibit, even if we still add the stip, it's not gonna matter.
It could. It's going to be a negotiation between you and the listing agent. I would go back and I'd say all transactions are all cash to the seller. Exhibits just get the buyer out of trouble and allow them to get their earnest money back. That's how I'd handle that situation. So all exhibits are just ways for the buyer to get out of the contract. Make sense? They're there to protect the buyer's earnest money. That's about it.
So then what's the protection that's B?
What's the protection in B?
Why would someone press B then?
This is just the language that they decided to change it to, the
Which is
GAR,
crazy.
the Weissman. It doesn't protect the buyer, it protects the seller. It protects the seller from being 8-day unilateral when you have the cash to close,
You know.
right?
Yeah, because I mean, if you have the house,
And that wasn't mentioned in the class that we had, right?
No, she made no point of that, which was very interesting because in my world,
Yeah, that's huge.
this is devastating.
Yeah.
Like my clients would think I was,
You malpracticed
yes, and
That's
I
what
would
they
have,
think
Yeah.
by
Actually-
not reading the contract.
Had notes in.
because they don't read the contracts. They rely on me.
And our expertise. Happens all the time. Right? Any other questions? No? Thanks, Jay, for joining us. This is it.